This is Senate Appropriations, and we're continuing our work on the 2025 budget, and we have the Commissioner of Taxes here to present their budget request. I see you have your COO, is that okay? Andrew is here. And we will turn it over to you. We have your document that probably gives us more information than we're going to cover today, but
Sure.
Appreciate the graphics, moving the scanner. I mean, that's, we probably want to spend a lot of time on that too. Yeah, and but actually the flood response, those are kind of interesting things as well, because you've got some challenges. So if you want to just take it, and probably the House would have gone through line by line in greater detail, but we really, it's Cabot Place. Oh, well then that's Richard's Bridge. I should know that. Richard Wall. That's what it says. Oh, it's great. Oh, Cabot.
So I've got two in my district.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Richard Spalding, the one.
Thanks for putting a picture of my bridge on.
Well, Walden isn't in your district.
Said it was in Cabot.
Oh, I guess it is. It's Cabot Plains.
Cabot Plains. I mean, as long as it's on the Cabot, everything.
Yeah, no, that's all. That whole backside of Joe's Pond is Cabot.
I think
Joe's Pond, where you can use weight. Okay. All right, now we've now we know where Monster Bridge is. And if you go to Cabot Plains, it's spectacular view in there. It's really gorgeous.
Yeah.
So, Commissioner.
Yeah, well, thanks for having us, Madam Chair. I'm Craig Bolio, Tax Commissioner.
Andrew Stein, Chief Operating Officer.
And always appreciate the time in front of this committee. Our budget,
do, huh?
our we try to do right by the committee, making sure that our budget is very boring and straightforward and
We like that.
Yeah, and not controversial. For highlights, I would just say it's been another really successful year for the department. We have had a number of successful years now. We have very high service levels. We are meeting our most aggressive refunding metrics ever. We met the most aggressive refunding metrics last year. I'm happy to say Andrew and I do a weekly check-in with our team because we're in the middle of tax season now. We are currently exceeding last year's pace again this year. So we're just trying to keep above that and keep improving on that. Building on our successes.
Yes, right.
What is the main metric time? Like how fast you do the?
Yeah, we track, our main metric that we track is how many refunds we issue by June 1st. We also track fraud and improper payments, how much we're catching on that, because there's a balance there, right? Expediency and efficiency versus adequacy of review. I think we've really hit a good sweet spot. I think we are quite, I don't want to use the word aggressive, I'll say responsible with our reviews as well to make sure that we're really ensuring that payments that go out are proper
Are
ones.
most people filing electronically?
Oh, yeah. I
Do
would
you ever
say
get paper returns?
we do.
A few.
We appreciate everyone who does file electronically, but if you insist on filing by paper, we will process it. 95% is what we hit last year, close to it, over 90% for personal income tax last year. If you go back 20 years, right, that was inverted.
Yeah.
Right, it was 10% electronic, so
We love that.
we've really digitized and modernized a lot of places in the department, and the places that aren't yet, we're actively involved in doing that we can speak.
Your modernization seems to have progressed quite smoothly over the years.
Yeah, we use a system, it's called VTAX that we call it, it's by a company, Fast Enterprises.
And they're doing the
it's-
DMV contract.
They are doing the DMV, and we first started that project in 2014. Our last rollout was 2018, 2019. So we've been fully implemented for a number of years, but we continue to have a very strong presence from that vendor who works with our embedded ADS staff because we patch it several times a year, 2 or 3 times a year. We do patches, just like you would for Microsoft Office or whatever. And then we do version upgrades. We did one a couple of years ago, and we're expecting to do another one in the next couple of years that brings more features in and again increases service levels. So that system has completely transformed what we can do as an agency, and then we've paired a very talented workforce with that very powerful software tool. And I think that those two things are a big driver behind our success. I would flag, right, we had challenges this year. We were impacted by the flood. We were right next door at 133 State Street. We could not access our building from July until about November. I am extremely proud of,
Where did you go?
we went up to the, one of the buildings at National Life, the Dewey Building up there, where it could house, we have, on staff now, we have about 150 FTEs. It could house about a third of them, which just happens to be the amount of people that have to work in person to do the work. And then also the people who really want to work in person. Most of the department is doing their work remotely 4 days a week. And so that was one of the reasons we were able to be successful there, as we said, all right, until further notice, now you're doing your work from home all the time, but allow the ones who really wanted to be in the office and had to be in the office to go up to Dewey. But you know, it was a challenging move, but I'm also really proud of what everybody did. One of the things that I've been telling folks is I've had a number of stakeholders, folks in the legislature, folks in tax preparer offices that said, oh, I didn't even know that you guys got displaced, right? And to me, that was a sign that our service level stayed so high, even in the transition and those challenges, that folks who were still interacting with us somewhat regularly had no idea. I think the biggest impact that happened is if you sent us a check on the second week of July, we probably didn't cash it until the first week of August. But other than that, you know, our electronic systems were up, our phone systems were up, our email boxes were up. People could file electronically. We were issuing electronic refunds. So the vast majority of our services went uninterrupted. So we took the lessons of COVID.
So where's your computer network? It must have been high.
I can't tell you that. No. It's we have our primary servers are at Tech Vault in Williston, and then we also have backup at National Life. So yeah. So we're good there. ADS manages those for us, but yeah. So those were safe. Thankfully, and didn't have any interruptions there.
Out of the flood zone.
Yeah. So I might start on
I
the.
have one question.
Oh, sure.
We're talking about computers. Obviously, cybersecurity is really a concern, and DEVA has been in the news because they're one of their vendors for their pharmacy benefit is down.
Yeah.
And how are our states experiencing cyber attacks on their tax systems? Is that I mean, we hear about the risk and even small, well, hospitals have certainly been hit. So
Yeah.
have the tax systems been a target?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I would
think,
say.
Because of the information you have. So,
Yeah, the breadth of the information and the sensitivity of the information makes us a prime target. I would say on the short list of things that make me lose sleep at night, cybersecurity and breach and attack is one of them. Where I rest easier is the fact that, again, we have a system that is used in 30 plus other states around the country and multiple countries around the world. And so we get a benefit from that infrastructure. We're not all in the same database. We have very strict regulations in terms of protecting data. But what we get is the benefit. Right, that we can rely a lot on the experience that vendor is bringing to the table to make sure that the systems are secure. We also work with the Agency of Digital Service, who's really primarily responsible for the IT security posture of the tax department. And again, making sure that we're in compliance with what are very strict IRS regulations for protection of what they call federal tax information, and also doing our own things like penetration testing to see where there are holes in the system. So it's a really robust effort for us. Like, you can never say never that it can't happen, but boy, I think we're doing a lot to do to make sure that we're minimizing that risk, and definitely something that's at the forefront of my mind and leadership's team's mind in terms of outstanding risks.
Let you keep going.
Sure. So I'm going to start on this page with the
Your
green
current
current
initiatives.
initiatives. Yeah. So we're implementing a number of different
One of them
policies.
was
So
quite familiar since.
I believe it is. Yeah. So the child care contribution that launches July 1. So we are on pace to launch that as necessary. We have begun really our earnest communication plan to let people know as well. So last week or the week before, we have the ability to email businesses through our MyVTax portal. The vast majority of businesses have an account with us, and so we can send them an automated email. So we emailed about 30,000 withholding taxpayers, and we also emailed 1,700 tax preparer accounts, third-party tax preparers can also sign up for an account. We have a website that has a guide for child care contribution that explains both for employers and self-employed individuals what they'll need to do. We have a video on that. We're gonna host some webinars, so it's really just trying to make sure we've got the awareness out there. I have every confidence that we'll launch the tax as required on July 1 and be ready to collect that. There were some big corporate income tax reforms that were passed in 22, I believe, that are active for tax year 23. They're pretty in the weeds things, but the big one is moving away from apportioning corporate income on the sales into the state and people and property they got in the state and just looking at sales. And that has really the benefit of reducing taxes for companies that have a big presence here, have a lot of jobs or buildings here, while increasing taxes on companies that sell a lot into the state without necessarily having the jobs or people. And that's sort of been a trend around the country to move in that direction, and Vermont did that as well. So we're really eager to see what those tax returns look like this year. And new local option tax towns. That's really a trend that has just gone up and gets more complicated. It gets more complicated because of how zip codes and postal addresses and town boundaries are not always clean. And it really depends on where things get shipped to. So in the digital world now, where a lot of shopping is happening online and getting shipped from online companies, those boundaries can get trickier and trickier to follow. So the department has really taken on more and more work leading up to the launch of local option tax towns to try to make sure that everybody in that town and in neighboring towns understand what their responsibilities are, and then doing more review work on those critical first few months to make sure that we're catching businesses that, believe it or not, may not actually know which town they're in, and certainly the cases where sales that are going across borders between neighboring towns are being accounted for correctly. As I spoke about, we've had some really successful tax seasons. We're looking to build on that success. Again, I give the credit to our staff for buying into the vision, taking a service-oriented approach, and really just crushing it over the last couple of years, even with some challenges faced in front of them.
So a few years ago, we had a lot of complaints about not having clear instructions about the treatment of the applicability of the sales tax on items. And the classic one was ice, but there were others, compost, et cetera, I think. And I'm, people were concerned that information to clarify when that tax applies, when and so forth, was not as good as it should be. And that gets into certainly your customer service arena. I was just wondering, and I'm sure things have changed a lot, because that was a number of years ago.
At least a dozen years ago.
Well, gosh, how about that?
Size-wise,
Yeah, so my question really is, when you were talking about the emphasis on support to the customer, to the taxpayers, really, and the support that they're given. So I was just wondering, are there any issues like that still floating around in terms of clarity or where?
well, I'm sure there are, right? There's 50 plus sales tax exemptions at this point. So there's always complexity with stuff, with things like that.
And well, we did that, of course, created those
Right,
exemptions.
one at a time.
Yeah, one at a time, and they all add up.
Right, so, oh, sorry.
Question about that. Do you in any way keep track of what the exemption means for loss of revenue?
Yes.
Yeah, both.
Yeah, so the joint
You
fiscal
guys do
office.
that? Yeah, but
I was
Combination.
just gonna ask
Yeah,
you.
it's published by the joint fiscal office. They're working with our
It's called a
team.
tax expenditure.
it's a great report.
Yeah,
It really
my
is,
annual.
yeah.
It's a lot.
You can see like all the money you're losing.
It's a lot of.
They do a good job.
Well, there's 50 exemptions, it must add up to.
Those are hard ones to estimate, the sales tax ones, because they're not necessarily reported on the return the way some of the other ones are.
To speak to your question though, Madam Chair, yeah, I would say that education is a renewed focus for us, right? Really trying to take the approach of, most people want to do the right thing, right? 97% of the money that we get at the department comes in voluntarily. So if we can help people understand what their obligations are, we can just improve voluntary compliance, use our compliance tools where we need to in a thoughtful way. Like one of the approaches that we started taking in the compliance division, right, is we call it an educational campaign. So we see in an industry that there might be a challenge, an unclear rule. Again, because of our powerful system now, we can notify all the businesses in that industry, not an audit, right? But just like, hey, here's a fact sheet. We are seeing that folks in your industry might not understand this. Why don't you take a look and on a go forward basis, make adjustments, or if you have to amend your return, do that. And then sort of the next tier of that is if we really think that there are some businesses that may not be reporting, you can say, you know, this is the fact sheet, but I think we sort of expect either a response back to why you think we're wrong or some amended returns. Again, we can get additional voluntary compliance without having to go through thorough audits and really reserve those more aggressive tools for the times that they're truly warranted. So definitely I would say it's a focus of ours. I can't say that all the complexity is cleared up in the world of sales tax and others, but definitely a focus for us. We have more fact sheets and publications on our website than we've ever had. I don't even know the numbers. It's substantial. Implement a new scanning system that kicked off just a few weeks ago, where the vendors coming back on
What do you have
site.
to scan since everything is digital?
Well, we would love to have to scan nothing, but you know, there are always gonna be folks that just for whatever reason want to mail us a paper check, want to mail us a paper return. We've got to be prepared to do that. So our scanning system is 2 decades old at this point, so it's functional, but we also know that we've got to make sure we've got some modern software. And so we're looking forward to that project. Our finance team is excited and eager to do that. And the vendor is kicking off that project. Looking to build on our recruitment success. I think we have one of the lower vacancy rates in the state. We put a lot of energy into making sure that folks understand that we are trying to build a great place to work. We care about culture. I feel an enormous responsibility as a leader for an organization to build a place that is a great place to work.
How many
Because-
employees do you have, Craig?
Well, at the end of this year, we'll have 167.
What's the vacancy rate?
Well, so we have, if we exclude the new positions that were just created, we were looking at averaging over the course of the past year about 6.5% vacancy rate.
That's pretty good in this environment.
It's a lot better than.
Yeah, I would say 2 or 3 years ago, we struggled, right? We did really well in the pandemic where people were looking for that stability. And then we struggled a little bit coming out of the pandemic, and that made us really redouble our efforts. We built a recruitment team with frontline staff from every division. And I said, I want us to have really sell the department on all of our job postings. We made a recruitment video that is awesome, that really does a good job. Again, frontline staff talking about their experience as a department. Like, I want to build a good culture and a strong culture and make people feel like they can have a great career at the tax department. Not only because it's just the human element of that, right? If folks are going to spend a third of their life at work, let's make it a great place to be. But the service level, right? It's a lot easier to go that extra mile if you're having a good time at work. And so that's my philosophy and our philosophy, and folks like Andrew and others on my leadership team bought into that. And there's a responsibility at all levels of the organization to buy into that and be part of building a good culture. And thankfully, I'm happy to say that the folks really have bought into that vision.
So PBR in the past has been really, in terms of the staffing and the workload, it seems like we've heard that was a real challenging area. Is that still the case?
The staffing is robust, like we don't have a high vacancy rate there, but that is one of the areas that is not yet modernized in the department. And so that's one of the areas that we are focused on. So the VT Pi project is implementing a new grand list system.
That's
And
why you
then
still have
also,
fast.
whoops, I'm sorry,
That's why you still have is that the new fast contract?
that's not through Fast, it's through a different vendor called Catalyst. Well, but we still have the Fast contract because that has ongoing maintenance, right? Again, we do those patches and those upgrades and our ongoing licensing. So continue to improve process improvement in forms and VTAX, and then just further operationalizing our organizational values, which I know I talked about last time, but service, integrity, community, and growth, not things that we just put on a piece of paper and forget about, but really use for driving decision making and making sure folks at all levels of the organization know that. I'm happy to pause there and take any questions. If not, I would throw it to Andrew to get into the ups and downs.
The source of your special funds, what special funds, I see, well, you did have in 24, 8.3, and the governor's recommend now it seems to be special fund 11.8. What are the special funds that would be in this line?
So we have our computer modernization
That-
fund, which we
okay.
pulled, that's the big one, which we
That's the
pulled it
big one.
into the
I
annual
assumed it
budgeting
would be.
process. We also have the local option tax fee fund. There's a fee that's assessed on.
Oh, because you're doing all the collection and stuff.
Yeah, it's less than $6 fee. It adds up as you have more local option tax payers, and with remote sales tax, it's added up more. So what we are doing with that covers local option tax administrative costs. But what the legislature did last year and the governor is we created this new commercial appraisal and litigation assistance program, or it's called the state appraisal and litigation assistance program for the appraisal of commercial properties.
Sure.
And this fund was used to pay for 2 new positions to administer it, plus roughly $500,000 in grants. The program is not yet set up. That is a casualty of the floods from this past summer. We weren't able to create those positions until this autumn, and we just started recruiting for them a couple of months ago.
So you would do the appraisals yourself, I mean, like the hydro dams.
We'll contract out for most
yeah.
of it.
Uh-huh.
It depends on who we bring in as the head of that program, but we'll probably have a number of contracts for specialized commercial appraisers. Because an appraiser who appraises a mine, for example, is gonna be different than an appraiser who appraises
Hydro dam or,
exactly commercial real estate of different sorts.
So this is childcare special fund.
Yes, so the big, if you look at the ups, if you all are on that, the 1.55 million, that's a net number, but most of that is coming from the new childcare contribution, the new childcare special fund.
The administration for that tax is taken out of that special fund. So those positions have been granted by the legislature for the collection of that, from that special fund. As well, that 580,000 operational costs, that's allocating some of those other operational costs that would be associated with those positions.
okay. See then.
Do you want a high level overview of the ups and downs?
Well, we're sort of doing that, obviously the salary, the benefits and so forth is pretty straightforward. Your, vacancy savings, so we're down to maybe the, childcare, you just did that, but the 3%, I don't know what lot and that's LA.
Yeah, that's local option tax,
Okay.
salad, that state appraisal and
Okay,
litigation.
all right.
You don't love that acronym, but it's kind of stuff.
Yeah.
How can you not?
And it fits in there.
They've covered just about all the ups and
Yeah,
downs
you have,
already.
you have,
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question about local?
Yeah.
So the online purchases, do you pay the local?
Yes.
Or based on the address of the,
If you know your zip code.
The delivery, yes, where the item is delivered.
so if, like, does Montpelier have a local option?
Yeah.
So if you ordered from online, they would, they obviously collect the state, but they collect the local as well then?
Yes.
The challenge that you see with the online vendors, the town I can remember, because I know my deputy commissioner Rebecca has been like so in the weeds on this, but like the town of Middlesex doesn't exist in the world of the US Postal Service, right? And so it's some of those zip codes go to Montpelier, some go to Berlin, some go to Barry. And so the challenge that you get is sometimes folks get charged when they shouldn't have, and then there are other times where it might go the other way, where they should have been charged and weren't. So that's
How
what
would you
we,
even know that?
well,
broken out, but they're probably just charging 7.5 instead of 6.
Well, we worked with VCGI to create a boundary file,
Oh.
which is where the boundaries are, and these, particularly the larger, there's this streamlined sales tax agreement, which we're a part of. And they also publish this boundary file for us, and it's a standard format. So all these online retailers, they can go access this boundary file and they know which jurisdiction.
They have the physical location as opposed to just a post office. box.
Exactly, yeah.
yeah, BCGI has address by address what town is it actually in.
Uh-huh.
And they, I mean, They built us a tool that, you know, private companies usually charge for. We were able to do it in-house with their help. It's
So
been a
there's a
great
different
partnership.
code for the physical address than the 911.
Yeah, and the 9-digit,
They have them all listed with this, the spam number and all of that for property tax.
That's right.
It's all labeled with that. So if you go on the BGI, their system, you know, cause a number of towns you have,
Right.
like Jeffersonville is the postal code,
Yeah,
but
I have that
there's
right.
and I have the, you know, Fletcher that's next door that is 2/3 Cambridge, but
Right.
in Franklin County.
Yeah, we have the same thing with Barry and
So,
Berlin.
yeah, what happens now with Montpelier mail going to Berlin?
It's,
well, again, hopefully
Yeah, the post office.
My wife
the
has stories, I'll tell you.
yeah,
but they're, and because they're looking at the actual physical location of the customer.
yeah, and the
It doesn't matter
9-digit
what
zips
post
can get
office.
pretty close as well. So a lot of vendors will use the 9-digit zip code, but not everybody does, and so that's where it can create challenges as well.
That's the reason we need the post office.
I bet the local option tax administration is more accurate than the letters in terms of where they're being delivered.
That's a bold statement.
As a Montpelier resident, I can attest.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
No, they've been doing a good job, it's funny.
Yeah.
It's a lot of people.
Other comments about the money?
One thing I just wanna point out with the local option tax too is because of the expansion in local option tax, not only municipalities, but also the online sales, we're able to fund pilot in full. This is the first year, and that's the plan for next year. So payments and low taxes that go to municipalities.
But how, you mean we haven't been paying in full,
No, it was like 60% 5 years ago.
and we just say, too bad, so sad?
Yeah,
We didn't have that much.
on the pilot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But don't confuse that with, what we do for current use to make municipalities whole.
No, it's like
Or
Montpelier,
who's that
it's a lot of
rebates?
pilot.
There's still old think about that, you know, current use. And our town report actually has everybody who's enrolled in current use.
Mhm.
It's sort of like, you know, the old overseer of the poor, see who's, oh, no, they shouldn't be getting that because they've got a lot of money, right? I mean, that's part of why it was done, to be honest.
But the pilot, we decide what the value of the buildings are.
It's based on the insured values.
But sometimes it's not buildings, right? It could be
Like,
just
It could,
land.
we administer the building pilot. The
Oh.
land pilot is
A&R.
administered by A&R.
But
And that's separate. I don't know what the
It is.
payment is on that.
So
I'm not certain.
Yeah,
given,
so
you
Center
only
Line,
pay the building pilot.
Center Lines and then Center Western.
but that's not a very fair
Adequate.
way to you do it according to the insurance,
The insured values.
because most insurance companies, when you get your property tax bill on your house, you'll see it sky high, and for some reason I mean, up north, they overinsure houses, you know, I think.
Well, that would mean the state is overinsuring its property, but I don't think that's probably, I don't know what they're doing. But
Well,
you have to have some basis to
you
make.
must know what your house, when you get your your bill from your insurance company, and what you figure your house.
A lot depends on
Yeah.
how much risk you want to assume. You can,
there are two different numbers.
yeah. So but
It's two different numbers.
I'm gonna, so, you're using it based on insured value, but you have to use some
I believe it's
property.
in statute, I'd have to reference the statute, but.
So Center Lines and then Center Westman.
So a little different from payment, though taxes, but when do you get involved at all in helping with the assessed valuation when state properties are sold? So, okay, probably, I can see that.
I mean, generally assessments of.
No,
property
usually
valuation-
BGS does, and they contract out for the
And
appraisal.
they have a
Yeah.
third
Yeah.
party contract.
Right.
Thanks, Madam Chair.
Oh,
I wasn't sure.
oh,
You,
We learned
they
something.
could tell.
new
The
every day.
Yeah.
answer was no, right?
I'm sorry, but I didn't know the answer.
I have
to
no
that.
apology either for my chair.
Okay, Center Westman.
So, the replacement value are, have we seen an increase in that because in commercial properties around and in housing properties, most of the insurance companies in the last 6 to 8 months have changed their policies nationally. And it's gone to a replacement value. And because of COVID and the jump in materials and construction costs, about every insurance company is increased their replacement value by somewhere between 20% and 40%. So are we gonna see, how is that going to affect?
It's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I do know that for next year, the main driver of the increase in pilot is municipal tax rates going up.
Yeah, there's huge.
Yeah.
And,
When I
We've heard about that.
and what you have for insurance, you can decide how much risk you want to assume, so.
Well, you can't.
Unlike, well, if you have a mortgage, probably not, but,
And most people don't have a mortgage.
oh, then, I thank you for that clarification.
Very much.
Well,
You have a mortgage.
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Well, all you
Six of them.
you younger guys should have a mortgage. You should even be thankful for giving us all.
I never had a mortgage on my house, it was $12,000. You,
When you bought the house, without the mortgage?
$12,000, no, there was no mortgage. My husband had saved up enough money and he was old enough so that he had $12,000, but you couldn't even buy a doorstep now for $12,000. It's incredible,
Why?
how the property values have increased.
Yeah.
But, needless to say, we're meandering down memory lane here when you could buy a car for 1,800, so.
It's turn a gallon of gas for a quarter.
That's right. Boy, those were the days. Man, you can see our cumulative age is about, yeah, like 1,000 years. Okay, well, other things we'd like to inquire of the commissioner, or something that we haven't asked you that we should?
Well, the other thing that I might highlight is we have, it's in the tax bill and House Ways and Means right now, but we'll have, it actually doesn't have a budget impact, sort of a good problem to have, but the renter credit program that used to be the renter rebate, the legislature and administration work together
To simplify that and improve the take up.
That's right. So it had been flat income limits for like 20 years. And so the program is spending less and less every year, had been budgeted at 9.5, kept spending between 5.5 and 6. And so it was overhauled in an effort to make it easier to file and also spend more and make it easier for the department to administer. All of those things have happened. It was challenging to know exactly how much money was going out in this program because of all the federal subsidies from COVID. So, but we do think that there is some more headroom there. So we can dial up the income limits without actually having a budget impact because it's been budgeted at 9.5 million. So we can get another, I think it's 3,000, 3,000 more people could get a renter credit, and then 4,000 people currently getting one would get a
I
larger
would
one.
say most renters don't understand your new system and don't know how to access the renters rebates, the forms that they used to have in it.
It's changed.
I've had 4
Are you
tenants.
speaking about the revised system that
The
got changed?
revised system, I've got 4 tenants that don't know how to apply anymore. And I gave them the direct line to the department
Yeah.
to ask what to do. Because of course, in my situation, I do the batch system,
Yeah.
send the batch in. But I've got 4 of them that said we didn't get rebates last year because we thought we should have, but we don't know how to apply.
I hope they did reach out. We see more people filing under the new system. So it does appear that we got more people coming in the door, which was part of it, but I'm always disappointed, like that was one of the goals, so I'm always disappointed here, let people
Yep,
may have qualified.
I'm just telling you.
Couldn't have.
How would I, with the new system, what's the cutoff for the rebate?
It's not, it depends on where they live, because it's based on area median income now, which is it's different by each county, but generally 50% of area median income will be the upper bound. The proposal, excuse me, moves it to 65%.
So that'd be for 20.
Yeah, that's on
Yeah.
page, I don't know what page
And
it is.
that's just to use
Right
up
here.
the
Page eight.
existing appropriation.
Is it page 8?
It's the one right after the ups and downs, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see it. Oh, yeah, it's. Wow.
Page 8. the
Page
40.
8 is, you can hardly see it here on the,
Yeah, I use this,
oh, well, that helps. It's
So-
right in the dark green, and it's very, very difficult to see.
you've gone
Can't
too,
see the now.
you've gone too far.
It's right here.
It's the next one after that.
Yeah, the one right after the ups and
But
downs.
the
right
black
on the other
ink
side of the
is,
page.
it's very hard to see with that dark green.
Just trying to keep you on your toes.
Oh, is it the page? Oh, that would explain,
Why we didn't have, yeah.
somebody mentioned there weren't page numbers and I'll mention.
But they are paginated.
Oh, yeah, right.
But
Oh,
you,
goodness.
it
would be
That's,
helpful.
We accept the rebuke, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
So you really need a
We'll lighten the
bright
color
light
right
and a magnifying glass. All set. All right,
It gets paginated in Adobe and part of this is put together in. Maybe we need to use a lighter green at the bottom because I don't think they can use different colors.
We'll
figure it out.
So
That's a solvable problem.
even if you did white.
If you're holding.
Yeah.
That would work.
Yeah, yeah.
That shows up fine, but, yeah.
it would be
Okay.
helpful if they had the areas in, the area that what 65% is.
Well, it should be incorporated with all of our software vendors now. It should be built into that and
It would be helpful from a policy standpoint, sitting in a chair in the legislature.
oh,
To
sure.
understand what that is.
Yeah, no, and
And
How many areas do you have in the state? You said it's 50% of area median
Yeah.
income, so how many areas do you have?
it's by county and then I think Chittenden, Franklin and Grand Isle are looped into one.
One area? Okay.
He's only sharing it with Senate Finance, he said before he came in.
so it would be helpful to know what 65% is in, say, Chittenden County.
Sure, absolutely.
And be helpful, because it's not very high.
We can follow up with that.
It's after
Yeah.
that.
I would be shocked if it comes, and it's not 50,000 in Chittenden.
No, and it was, and again, the limit today is 50% of area median income.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're raising it.
Yeah.
About to 65.
proposing to. We're happy to talk about anything else. If you're interested, we can talk about the flood response. We can talk about performance. Whatever would interest you.
On renter credit, I have a fun fact. In 2018, the percentage of credits that were issued within 60 days was 35%. Today, we're at 95%.
For rebates?
Yeah, so these renter credits.
Reggie's got some real runners.
Well, here's some actually did have them as well.
It used to be 35%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
last year was
Yeah.
95.
So it's supposed for 2024 to be 65.
Sorry, no, I'm just talking about the,
I'm going back to the.
yeah.
Yeah,
50% to 65.
Yeah, what Andrew was talking about is just the percent we had issued during the 60 days. Yeah, so again, that speaks to the efficiency that was gained from the reform and us getting better at it.
And also, successful use of IT. I mean, everybody sort of focuses on the failed, IT projects, but
We are a success.
I think tax has been good. And DMV, of course, was horrible, but they now have the same vendor and that seems to be going fairly well, so.
And they took our two top IT people.
What?
And they took our two top IT
Oh,
people.
well, that really helps
Yeah,
too.
we're all on the same team.
Yeah.
All right, other
Should be
questions?
assessed a penalty.
Area median income in Burlington is 150.
Get somebody all trained.
115?
115.
Okay, so 50% would be over.
50% is 57, 850. This, the same I look up fuel just gives you 50, 80 or 100.
He's got two.
Oh, it's all right there.
And.
It's right there, huh?
All right there.
All right there.
Look it up.
Right, that was me.
You don't need.
Brett, the answer is Chittenden County area median income,
57,000.
50% is 57,000.
57.
Yes.
Send that to Richie.
Well, so.
Well, his renters aren't in, you know,
But.
So other questions or
That's
comments that
exactly
we
what I'm
wanna,
saying.
coming in at the end of the day probably has its advantages and disadvantages, but,
If you're happy, we're happy, Madam Chair.
Oh, good, good.
How much of that building are
That's
you?
good news.
We are on 4 floors.
Is there 5 including?
There's 5, yeah, BGS is up on this floor.
Well,
And
and
there
there's
is a
a basement.
basement, but that's not accessible.
No, that's.
Yeah, that is.
Like a conference room down there.
Yeah, there was a training room and a
Yeah.
conference room and the legislature had a couple of rooms down there. But we didn't regularly have anybody working.
BGS wanted to get up above the flood. They take the top.
Oh,
We've never, well, I can't say never, we have not used the 5th floor in a long, long time. I think at one point the tax department did, but we've
it's a
been
beautiful
floors
conference
1
room
through
up there.
4.
It's a weird
Yeah,
space.
yeah, and that's not the tax department's
No.
conference room, which is.
No.
Yeah.
The 5th floor, or the one on.
It's on the 4th floor.
Isn't the one that's down from your own boardroom.
Committee, we seem to be losing attention here, so unless there are further questions, I'm going to suggest that we adjourn for today and then we can engage in conversation as people want. But in terms of the presentation of the budget, I think we've covered it and I appreciate your information. And I'm going to adjourn the committee and we'll go off.